regular meeting of the Victoria City Council to order. It's our tradition to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you're able, we invite you to stand and join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on our agenda this evening is announcements. All meetings of the City Council are open to the public and held in council chambers at City Hall unless otherwise noted. We encourage anyone wanting to attend or interested in speaking at a council meeting or workshop to contact our city clerk in advance for more information, and she'll provide the protocol for doing so. In other announcements, the Victoria Firefighters Relief Association is hosting its annual ice fishing contest on Steger Lake. We invite everyone to join in the fun and support our Fire Relief Association. The contest starts at noon on February 8th on Steger Lake. More information can be found on the city's website. We're also currently accepting applications to fill open seats on 2 citizen advisory boards, the Planning Commission and the Parks and Recreation Committee. There are no openings for our Senior Advisory Committee this year. For more information or apply, please visit the city's website or contact our city clerk. Beyond this, we have no other announcements this evening. So we also have a proclamation this evening, which I will read now. So we have a proclamation honoring February 2026 as African American History Month. So whereas in February 1926, a historian and scholar, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, established Black History Week to commemorate the achievements and enduring legacy of Black Americans, an observance that has grown into what we now celebrate as Black History Month. And whereas the African American community has profoundly influenced the cultural, political, social, and economic fabric of our nation through strength, creativity, perseverance, and leadership. And whereas African American History Month offers a meaningful opportunity to honor the countless individuals, past and present, whose vision, courage, and contributions continue to shape and enrich our society. And whereas learning about African American history deepens our collective understanding, fosters respect, and strengthens our shared commitment to inclusion, equity, and unity within our community. And now therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor and City Council of the City of Victoria do hereby proclaim February 2026 as African American History Month and encourage all residents, schools, businesses, community organizations to observe this month through educational programs, commemorative events, and meaningful conversations that celebrate the lasting contribution of Black Americans. The City of Victoria further invites all Victoria residents to come together this month and throughout the year in reaffirming our dedication and enduring principles of justice, equality, dignity for every individual. Our next order of business this evening is to adopt the final agenda. Council, is there a motion to adopt the final agenda?
Motion to adopt the final agenda.
Second.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion carried. Does the clerk have those noted?
Robert and Reef, yes.
Yes, I believe we had Councilmember Rife make the motion. Roberts a second.
Opposite.
Moving on, our next topic is open forum. Open forum is the opportunity to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda and not in an application form that will be coming before the council in a future date. We ask the comments be limited to 3 minutes. Please do not expect action from the council this evening regarding your comments. Council members may ask clarifying questions, but open forum is not intended to be a back and forth discussion. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda this evening and not in application form before the city, or that will be coming before the city in a future date? Good evening. Would you state your name and address?
Nick Ardino, 7050 Kings Road, Excelsior, Minnesota, 55331, President of the Kings Road Neighborhood Association. Not speaking to anything on the agenda tonight, but there were some allegations raised last week on the 20th at Planning Commission. Some of you may have seen a copy of that. I'd call on the city to launch an independent investigation into the establishment of an easement for drainage and utilities across the Tamarack properties, and also investigate the value of the land used when selling the land. I've completed several Data Practice Act requests. I have the output of that data, which I'm happy to share with council, provide to the clerk. A copy, I think, exists in the record. The facts are these, right? And from an investigation perspective, where did I go? On March 10th, 2025, it was intimated that an easement would be established across the Tamarack properties for future development. When Councilman Peterson asked, is there a purpose of this? The statement was, well, future development or maybe sewer needs. And that conversation further went on. Maybe in 50 years there might be future development. Question for Mr. Peterson, right? What that withheld and what the concern was is there was an active plan for development to come forward and use that easement. And the results of that Data Practices Act show that in the days prior to that meeting, March 2nd through March 4th, there was active coordination with the developer and city staff to plan that easement, and an indication from the developer that they had full plans to bring in development proposal forward for 15 homes with sewer and road infrastructure. Later commentary from Mayor McMillan indicates that there was no inclination to City Council that any development was potentially planned for that site, and that was in June of 2025. That left me kind of asking, like, why withhold this? The city would typically approve a development and easement would kind of make sense. The other facts that really matter here are in parallel on March 10th was the sale of the Tamarack properties, 26 acres for $240,000. So I looked at the appraisal, and the appraisal says, this land, yes, there's some buildable lots, there's 5, but because there's no infrastructure and no road, they really would be inconceivable that a developer would actually build a road and a sewer to get to just 5 lots. What that withheld was that there was an active plan dating back to January of 2024 to build that sewer and build up to 22, if not more, homes adjacent to that Tamarack property. That information, had it been shared with the appraiser, would have materially increased that appraised value. And the appraiser states in his appraisal, this land, if buildable with lots, could sell for $2,450,000. Now that data, looking back through more Data Practice Act requests, looking at the communications that City had with the appraiser and with Bolton Menk, indicate that the appraisal actually began in July of 2024. Bolton and Menk, the highway engineer for Highway 5, that was trying to acquire that land to offset easements for the Arboretum and Department of Fish and Wildlife, needed to acquire this land. They say through their appraisal agents and their subcontractors, hey, we think, can we get a value from the appraiser? And he comes back in June and says, yeah, about $240,000 before doing any appraisal work. So we've got what looks like, and this is an allegation, right? It needs to be factually vetted, but it looks like there's a predetermined value in July of 2024. This doesn't hit City Council workshop until October 14th, where the city engineer comes before you saying, hey, there's an opportunity to sell these Tamarack properties. I haven't seen the appraisal. The land isn't really buildable. We can't get it developed. Meanwhile, from July to that time, city staff was working with the city of Chanhassen on an MOU for sewer access to make that land buildable and have a developer come and bring facilities and infrastructure to that site. If you look at the establishment of the easement, other emails indicate November of 2024 that Bolton Menk was instructed to prepare a utility easement for proposed development at 7050 Kings. If you tie that data together, you see a concrete plan to build this easement for a dedicated private developer. The concerns are these. One, what was Victoria's true value of that land that was sold? If in fact it was developed when we have an inaccurate appraisal, that potentially cost the city $2 million. What potential misrepresentations were made in the appraisal? Regarding the easement, what misrepresentations were made to the public, and what's the lack of transparency mean there in terms of how that easement is used in the future? The public and Data Practices Act, if you look at the history of Data Practices Act, the public has a right to know what the government's up to. And what's clear from looking into this is not just the public, but the city council didn't know what was really going on in this situation. And I think these allegations are serious. I'm happy to share more data. There's more than I explained that's here. I'd ask the city to conduct a full independent review.
And you've deposited your packet that you've brought with us this evening with the city clerk?
Yes. Claudia, I think you have a copy. There's an email attached. There's a supplement attachment that details this.
I have an email, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm happy to stand for questions. I'm happy to answer follow-up questions.
Thank you for addressing the council with this. We'll have the clerk distribute that to us council members and we'll evaluate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to come before city council this evening? Seeing none, we will move on to something I personally look forward to each year. Yes, Jeff? Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right. Jeff Recker. I'm
Jeff.
at 279 Tristan Drive. So I'm actually adjacent to a number of those properties that are in question, and kind of related to what was just brought up. I reached out to the mayor, city manager. I think that's your Snow. Anyway, I made a phone call, an email, and some inquiries because those properties were right next to my house. And I'd asked, right, if there was any development planned, and was told absolutely not. There was no development planned as part of any of the land swap. So definitely feel like what was shared is very concerning as a taxpayer and homeowner who's next to these properties.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members that would like to come before council in open forum? Seeing no one, I will now move on to something that I personally look forward to each year, and that is our new firefighters swearing in. This evening, we have two individuals who will be taking their oaths of office with Chief Shoger tonight. Chief, would you like to do some introductions and say a few words before we have our city clerk administer the oath?
Good evening, Acting Mayor and Council. Actually, we have 4 this evening. So we have 5 new firefighters that we've brought on, 4 of which were able to make it this evening. And I will bring them up and they'll quickly introduce themselves. And then we'll do our oath of office.
Good evening. Nice to see you all again. Eric Menth. I am currently a public works employee with the Utilities Department. Previously, I did serve a total of 8 years with St. Bonnie and Watertown Fire Departments, and my kids are at the age where I'm able to get back into it again. It has been missed for quite a few years, and thank you for this opportunity to join the Victoria Fire Department.
Good evening. I'm Dylan Lundmark. Grew up in Shakopee, just recently moved out here to Victoria. Work at Methodist Hospital full-time in their emergency room. I'm excited to get things going with the Victoria Fire Department, learn more about the city, and I thank you guys for the opportunity.
Welcome.
Thank you, Bill.
Hello, Ryan Kleber from Chaska, Minnesota, and I'm finishing up my welding certificate at Dunwoody. I'm excited to be a Victoria firefighter and serve and protect the community.
Thanks, Ryan.
Good evening. My name is Clayton Mechtel. I grew up across the street from the fire department watching big red trucks go out every day. Now I get to be on those trucks, and I'm very excited and very honored to be able to serve back and give back to my community. And thank you all for having me tonight.
Thanks, Clay.
Welcome.
I, Clayton Mechtel, do solemnly swear.
I, Dylan Lundmark, do solemnly swear.
I, Ryan Kleber, do solemnly swear.
I promise that I will humbly serve all customers with an urgent response to their crisis with compassion, sincerity, concern, patience, kindness, and respect. I promise that I will, at all times, conduct myself in a manner that reflects positively on the Victoria Fire Department as well as the city of Victoria. I recognize the badge of my office as a symbol of trust
mission, goals, purpose, and policies of the Victoria Fire Department. Finally, I promise to uphold the laws of our state, nation, and the ordinances of the city of Victoria. I will faithfully discharge my duties as a firefighter to the best of my abilities.
Gentlemen, before you leave, I know your oath says customers, and in reality, these are our residents. And it's a noble pursuit that you guys have just signed on. You're going to be relied upon in our residents' probably worst moments of their lives. And that's a huge, huge burden and responsibility, but it's a very noble thing. And I would just like to say on behalf of the council, thank you for serving the citizens of Victoria.
Thank you.
Can we do a picture with everyone?
Sure.
Of course.
Coming around, let's stay back here.
You want us to come around?
Come around.
Or we'll come around back there.
Probably more over here.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Beautiful.
Congratulations. Well, thanks, everyone. We'll now move on to our next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine, administrative, and do not require deliberation, or housekeeping items as required by law. Consent agenda items are approved with one vote unless someone requests an item to be considered separately. Ms. Hardy, does staff wish to pull any consent items for separate discussion and vote?
None from staff, Mr. Acting Mayor.
I would like to pull item 5.6. Council, are there any additional items you'd like to see pulled for separate discussion and vote?
None for me.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like an item pulled for separate discussion and vote?
Yes, please.
Step forward, state your name.
This is Nick Gardino, 7050 Kings Road, Mill Creek Lane in Excelsior, Minnesota. I'd like to pull, I believe it's item 1.15, the $29,000 contract award to Bolton & Mank. And I'll state the reasons why. So the city engineer for the city of Victoria is an employee of Bolton & Mank and has been since at least January of 2025. I believe this and other items that are also going to be before you in the record create a substantial conflict of interest that I think I know there's a conflict of interest requirement in Bolton & Mank's contract with the city. But I think that the presence of this, even though small dollars, do tie to much larger dollars at the city. And I think a full, transparent record and awareness of how is that conflict of interest being mitigated is not in the record, is not before us. And I think that the city should strongly consider that. And that ties to some of my earlier comments that relationship with Bolton & Mank, while they provide, I think, valuable service to the city and the county and other regions, that tie back to the city and being able to make and influence city practice and city decision should be taken at least a slightly closer look at to make sure that there is something that crosses that conflict of interest so that there's not concern.
Thank you, Mr. Gardino. We'll pull that item for a separate vote. Clerk, would you let the record reflect that item 5.6 and item 5.15 have been pulled for further discussion?
Yes.
Council, may I have a motion for the balance of the consent agenda, please?
Motion to adopt the balance of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilmember Reeves and seconded by Councilmember Pedersen. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Council, I pulled item 5.6 for transparency and to avoid any potential view of a conflict of interest. I'm recusing myself from the vote as I made a donation that appears on the report. So given that, Council, May I have a motion from you on item 5.6?
Move to approve item 5.6 on the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, motion made by Councilmember Pedersen and seconded by Councilmember Roberts. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, and then, council, may I have a motion for, did you look at item 5.15 for any discussion?
I would just ask our counsel if he can speak to the comments made by Mr. Gardino.
Again, this is with respect to the contract that we've pulled from the consent agenda, is that right?
Yes.
I gathered what the lead-in was? Yeah, well, so I viewed, as I suspect some of you or all of you may have done, I viewed the planning commission meeting where some of those allegations were made. You've separately then, after the planning commission meeting, received a letter from an attorney who presented at the planning commission on behalf of the Kings Road Neighborhood Group. She submitted a sort of lengthy memo that I think tried to outline what the comments were at the meeting. So I've sort of heard once and then read once what those allegations are, and they don't make sense to me, just to be blunt about it. I don't track the argument that's being made, either the verbal argument or the written argument. So it's hard for me to speak to it because I don't understand what the allegation is fundamentally. I would say that unlike lawyers, lawyers have a duty to represent clients and not represent clients that have conflicting interests, right? Lawyers have a conflict of interest rule as a matter of professional responsibility. Engineers don't have that. Engineers aren't bound by a set of professional rules about representing one client that's engineering interests are somehow in conflict with another client. That sort of almost doesn't make sense. That's not an engineering thing, that's a lawyer thing. So, and the allegation seems to be something about a conflict of interest. So putting aside that I don't really understand the allegation, it doesn't really make sense with respect to engineers. But I'm just kind of prattling on because I really fundamentally don't understand the allegation. What I can say that might be of some use for you is that although the lawyer's letter, I'm not sure if you've seen my response. I responded to the attorney, Ms. Khan, I believe it is. Via an email, and so I read her submission. The submission wasn't, again, submitted to the Planning Commission, so it's not really in the official record about the development that you're going to talk about in a little bit. But in her letter, she reiterates these allegations and then says at the end of that she wants somebody with grand jury or subpoena power to investigate. You don't have that, right? The City Council of the City of Victoria doesn't have subpoena power or investigatory powers like a prosecutor does. So I guess the request is that not that you investigate this, that somebody else, a prosecutor or police officers or somebody in that end of the world investigate this. It's not something you can investigate. So I don't think there's anywhere to go with this in addition to not understanding it and not thinking it applies to engineers. I don't think there's anywhere for you to go with it, and so I think you'll need to make a decision tonight about what you want to do with this proposed contract with what you have in front of you at this point, not with some results of an investigation that you're not going to conduct and you're not going to be involved with.
Could I ask you, Bob, so if, let's just say there was something that needed to be investigated, that'd be done by the Carver County investigative attorney, or how would that work?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, obviously, the elephant in the room, we've got a lot of this kind of stuff going on in our greater Minnesota community right now, federal law enforcement, state law enforcement, local law enforcement. I don't know the answer to the question.
Okay.
That what's going on just sort of highlights that it's a little bit complicated who investigates what and who does what level of law enforcement. Because I don't really fundamentally understand the allegations and they don't really seem to apply to engineers in general, it's hard for me to understand who would investigate, but it's not you. That much I know. Who it would be appropriately investigated by, I'm not, sort of in a position to answer that. I don't know.
So in a world where we're innocent until proven guilty, would there be recourse if, let's say, approved 5.15 for whatever, $29,000 for mill overlay work? Down the road, if there was some wrongdoing that was that surfaced, is there a way that we would most likely be able to claw that back or get out of the contract or move on from them?
Yeah, mayor and council, it's hard for me to speculate about that. I get the principle, council member, that and yes, I mean, the short answer is, if somehow you have been duped into entering contracts with Bolton and Mink, including this pavement management program, which has literally nothing to do with the development that you're going to talk about later tonight. But if somehow something is amiss with how Bolton and Mink got a contract, I'm confident that you could get out from under that contract. Whether you could literally get money back is another. I mean, you're kind of taking it layers of iterations deeper into where I'm prepared to go. But yeah, I mean, the general principle is right. I mean, it's quite a thing to allege that that's the case here. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. That's a potentially defamatory thing that's being said about Bolton and Mink, a very reputable firm. So I don't want to poo-poo that. But I mean, I don't mean when I say if you've been duped into something. I think that it's extraordinarily unlikely that that's the case, but it's not for me to investigate. It's not for you to investigate. And I think you need to make a decision about what you want to do with your pavement management plan.
And by not approving it, just in my opinion, I think it sets back the pavement management plan that we have been doing and dealing with for over 2 decades. I think it sets it back, potentially costing the city more money to try to reestablish it down the road if we deny it at this point. That would be my 2 cents.
Agreed, and also I don't see the connectivity, and you brought it up, between this and the development. So I just don't see the connecting of the dots there.
I don't have anything else to add. I mean, I agree.
Okay, so council, I think it's fair that we're aligned that these are mutually exclusive pieces, that the contract for the mill and overlay is a tool that is used to guide staff to have more favorable outcomes for the city's resources in driving a plan that is objectionable, actionable, and is efficient, as opposed to dedicating staff time, perhaps, that would perhaps take 3 to 4 times and cost the city more money. Do we feel in agreement that we can move forward with approving 5.15?
Yeah, I mean, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Motion to authorize Bolton and Mink to provide professional services for developing a 10-year pavement management plan in an amount not to exceed $29,000.
There's a motion. Do we have a second?
I'd second it.
All right, so we have a motion made by Councilmember Roberts and seconded by Councilmember Pedersen. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our first item on our regular agenda is item 6.1, which is our year-end strategic plan review for 2026. Presenting this evening is Assistant City Manager Alyssa Nelson. Ms. Nelson, welcome.
Good evening, Acting Mayor and Council. I am back again to present the strategic plan report. This has been a while since we've done this, and actually during your consent item tonight, you approved the strategic plan for 2025-2027. So we took a gap of doing these strategic updates for a little bit, but we're bringing it back to you, and we'll plan on presenting these quarterly to you moving forward. But just to highlight, the screen probably looks familiar. This is our high-level strategic priorities. You approved 8 of them, going from infrastructure, transportation, housing and community character, recreation and culture, and everything in between. What we do during these quarterly updates is we pick some initiatives out of these priorities. We present them as a high level. Highlights for you, highlights for the public of some projects that have been going on. And then in the packet, we have a comprehensive spreadsheet of every single one of these initiatives, how we're doing on these priorities for further review. So with that, some updates for you. The first item I have is under the engagement and communication strategic priority. The specific initiative that I pulled out is engage community members who do not typically participate through traditional channels. And the way we measure this item is how often and the number of events we bring our new mobile city hall trailer to. This item I'm specifically proud of. This is a lot of work that our communications team as well as our senior advisory committee works on. Actually, at the senior advisory committee level, your committee members spend countless meetings talking about ways to engage residents that don't have the means or don't have the technology to engage in the city through traditional methods or digital methods. So this is a way, the mobile city hall is just one of the ways that we're able to go out into the community and connect residents with city services, different events, different programs, and just share the work that the city does as well as our community partners. So I will say that under this, we did have a minimum of 4 events that we were supposed to go to annually. We knocked that out of the ballpark. We went to over 10 this last year in 2025. So that included classic car nights we were at, farmers markets. This picture is from Victoria and Bloom, which is a new event that we worked on with our local downtown businesses, Park After Dark, and of course our favorite truck rodeo. When we're excited for 2026 to bring the trailer back out and present this and have this out and share all the resources we have for the community moving forward. Our next update is infrastructure and transportation, and this we wanted to highlight that we did complete the permit requirements for our MS4 permit. The MS4 permit is through the Pollution Control Agency. It's what gives the city the ability to manage our stormwater, have our storm drains, have stormwater ponds. And the requirement, the state requirement, is continuously getting more rigorous on the requirements that they're making cities do. And one area that we specifically bolstered in the last year or so is the engagement category, really trying to educate our community about stormwater ponds and the impact of stormwater ponds and the importance of them and just the importance of runoff and even just saving water. So you saw us, if you were out in the community, showing off our water drop campaign where we just pulled water from different areas across the city. That could have been the lake right outside our back door here, Stagger Lake, a creek, some wells, and we had the community guess where the water came from, just to showcase, how important stormwater and those runoff ponds are for our drinking water in our community. Our next highlight actually takes 2 strategic priorities. The first is economic vitality, and the initiative under that is partner with at least one business organization, association, or governmental body annually on community beneficial projects or initiatives. And the second one is under environmental sustainability, which is host at least one sustainable initiative annually. In 2025, we partnered with 2 separate agencies, Carver County, and with Carver County, we provided cardboard recycling bins and organic waste collection sites for Victoria residents, and we did that at our old compost site in downtown. And we continue to work with the county to provide that program, but also educate the community and our residents on how to utilize those bins properly. And then in fall 2025, we also partnered with Bridging, which is a nonprofit organization. This partnership created an event where, it was at the recreation center, and residents could bring slightly used furniture, decorations to them, and they would bring them to families in need instead of throwing them away in dumpsters or having to bring them to a secondary site. So it was a great partnership, and we look forward to bringing both of these programs back for 2026 for another year. And just as a quick update, as I noted, that we have a giant spreadsheet in the packet that goes through each one of these initiatives. But just as a quick highlight, we have 197 initiatives that are in the strategic plan total. So far, just in 1 year down, we've completed 83 of them. For On Track, we have 43. We haven't started 55 yet, and the reason for that is usually there's another initiative that has to be complete first before we can start the next. And then we're behind the 8 ball on 16 of them, and hopefully that number will be lower by the time I meet with you next on this topic. With that, Council, Mayor Pro Tem, I am happy to answer any questions for you.
Great, Council, I'll open the floor for discussion. And also direct any questions at Ms. Nelson.
You guys did a great job on the plan. I like being behind the 8 ball because it gives me a chance to fix things.
Us too, Councilmember.
So thank you.
Well, I'll add that this strategic plan is something that we take very seriously. I mean, We have it in our workshop. It gives us an opportunity for us to meet, crystallize our ideas, get input from staff, and really form the direction that then staff is able to take that and really turn it into actionable items for the. I can't say enough about the effort that goes in there. Anybody who wants to get a flavor of it, just put yourself through the mind-numbing activity of even looking at the spreadsheet, let alone trying to understand it, document it, and execute on it. And if we just look at the raw numbers, they tell a great story. And even as Councilmember Pedersen says, hey, if we're behind, that's motivation. The number of items are minuscule, I think, in the grand scheme of things. And then when we look at just all of the things that staff does, you really need to look like no further than what happened this year at Light Up Victoria, and how they adapted from being down at the band shell and had to bring that in what would be brutally cold weather over at Lions Park. So I'll say from my seat as council member, thank you so much for all your efforts and really delivering on what Victoria expects from us. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add one example. You said with the trailer, 4 events and you have 10 plus. I mean, it's just, you're knocking it out of the park in some of these areas, and the residents in the community say so. So they're talking about it and excited about it, and it's great to see. So awesome job.
Well, thank you, Council. I have the pleasure of presenting on this item, but I cannot take any other credit myself. There's a huge team of my wonderful colleagues that make all this great work happen. So I will happily share your words tonight with them. Thank you.
Thank you kindly for being our ombudsman to the staff, and to let them know that I know that they, the first thing that they're going to do is watch the video on this, and they'll and be excited about it. So, Council, seeing no further discussion, we'll move on. The next item on our agenda is item 6.2, which is to consider a preliminary plat, a comprehensive plan amendment, and an easement and right-of-way vacations for Bell Maple Farm residential development. Presenting this evening is City Planner Brian McCann. Mr. McCann, welcome.
Thank you, Acting Mayor and Council members. Yes, tonight we have 3 requests for you to consider, the first being a preliminary plat, second, a comprehensive plan amendment, and then third and lastly, a easement and right-of-way vacation. So you may recall this proposed development went back through the sketch plat review process back in July of 2025 with our Planning Commission and City Council to provide general feedback to the developer. So since then, they have formulated their preliminary plat plan set and have submitted it to staff for review to bring forward to the Planning Commission and City Council. So here we are at the middle step in the process. This is where the major entitlements are granted. And as I mentioned, city staff does a review of the full plan set in detail. For the location and existing conditions, the property is located at 750 Kings Road, which is about an 8-acre parcel. And also with this development is a 33-foot strip of right-of-way just to the east. This development proposal is directly adjacent to the Chanhassen border. This road that you see here and these homes to the east are all within Chanhassen's boundaries. The site itself has generally flat land with some small areas of elevations on the borders and tree coverage on the borders as well. It's also within close proximity of the Lake Minnetonka Regional Trail, which I'll cover later, and within 1,000 feet of Lake St. Joe and Lake Tamarack. So the Shoreland Overlay District comes into play here. So for their proposal, they are proposing a 15 single-family lot subdivision with a temporary turnaround at the end of the proposed public street. They are also proposing with this an extension of Victoria Public Utilities from Interlochen, which terminates here in the cul-de-sac to the west, just past the Lake Minnetonka Regional Trail. Their proposal also includes a lift station and a stormwater basin down in the southeast corner of the development, as well as an additional 60-foot right-of-way to service properties to the south. So here is the plat that is being proposed with the 15 homes shown here, and then Outlot A would be for those stormwater basin, the lift station, and then that 60-foot right-of-way here to provide public access to properties to the south. For the zoning and comprehensive plan, it's currently zoned R1 low-density residential and guided that same category in our 2040 comprehensive plan, which allows between 2.25 and 6 units per acre. As I mentioned, they're proposing single-family dwellings, which are a permitted use within our zoning code. It's allowed by right. So if a development proposal this evening is meeting all the minimum bulk standards, there's a legal obligation to approve it in that sense. So looking at the bulk standards for their proposed development, they are meeting or exceeding every single one of the requirements in our bulk standards for the R1 low density residential district for single family homes. And then as part of their request, they are asking for a comprehensive plan amendment. As I mentioned earlier, the density in our 1.25 and 6 units per acre. They are proposing a lower density than what could potentially be constructed out here, so they're asking for less houses. To do that means that they have to get a comprehensive plan amendment with authorization from the City Council and final approval by the Metropolitan Council to allow a lower density than what could be constructed out here. And then I just include a note that that does require a supermajority, so we have 4 council members this evening. To approve that, all 4 of you would need to vote yes, just for reference when we get to motions at the end of the presentation. So for the Shoreland Overlay District, as I mentioned, it's within 1,000 feet of 2 lakes. You can see down here at the bottom of the image on the left, this is where they intersect. So Lake Tamarack is to the west. This is the 1,000-foot border from there, and Lake St. Joe is to the east, and this is the 1,000-foot border from that lake. So we have to look at stronger requirements per our Shoreland Overlay District, including a 20,000 square foot lot size with lots that are within the shoreland area, as well as a 125-foot minimum lot width and a maximum 25% impervious. Staff's review of the development shows that they are compliant with all of these requirements for lots that have a majority of their area within the Shoreland District. We also did pass this along to our DNR area hydrologists, and they did not express any concerns about this development. Moving on to their building materials and architecture, they did provide some general renderings of what could be expected out in this development. These will all be custom home lots, so they're not all going to look the same. They're going to have different interiors and different designs. They're also going to have all custom interiors, LP smart siding and real stone veneer on the outsides. And then just as a note that they explained in their narrative as well, these homes, they're predicting to be priced between 1.7 to 2.5 million. Looking at the lighting and signage, they have 2 public street lights proposed that would be within the City of Victoria's boundaries. There is also an existing street light within Kings Road in Chanhassen's boundaries. They do not have any proposed signage for development, so that is not applicable here. And then moving on to landscaping and tree preservation, they're required to provide a minimum of 50% open space throughout their development. There's about 30% of total hard cover throughout this development, so they have 70% open space provided. For plantings, they need to provide 3 trees per home. They've done that. I will note that we have a requirement that states there needs to be 2 trees in the rear yard, so that's something that we expect to come back with future revisions, that a second rear yard tree will be added for those lots that aren't meeting that requirement. And then for boulevard trees, they're required along front or side yards for corner lots, like this one specifically, every 45 feet, so they are meeting those requirements as well. And then lastly, as you know, you can remove 20% of existing trees on a site and not be required to provide additional trees for mitigation. In this case, they are going over that 20% removal, so they have 285 inches that still need to be accounted for. That could be included with additional trees in future revisions or a contribution to the city's tree fund in accordance with our fee schedule at $100 per inch, or alternatively, they could seek an exemption from the city council to try not to oversaturate the development site with trees. Moving on to streets and parking, they are all single-family homes. The renderings that they provide showed it enclosed garages and large enough driveway space to accommodate parking for the minimum requirements. They also are expecting to have parking allowed on one side of the street per our city standards. And then I mentioned that 60-foot right-of-way here that they're incorporating, which would provide a public access to the properties to the south. And then lastly, just of note, the city of Chanhassen did review this with a right-of-way permit, and they are just awaiting development approval from the city council of the city of Victoria before issuing that permit. Then looking at parkland dedication and pedestrian connections, as I mentioned, it's fairly close to the Lake Minnetonka Regional Trail. As part of that review, we reached out to the developer and asked to coordinate with the area that was recently acquired by the Minnesota Landscape Arboretum, as well as the property owner just to the west, about a potential connection to the Lake Minnetonka Regional Trail. It's our understanding that neither of those parties want a trail running through their property, and then also there's a steep, I believe, 30 to 40 foot drop here that would make it fairly difficult to construct an ADA compliant trail to get down to that trail without doing extensive grading and tree removal. So as part of this, they're also not proposing any parks with this. So the cash fee in lieu and land in accordance with our code is anticipated in this, but we'll finalize the details of that at final plat. Our Parks and Recreation Committee did review this and recommended cash, and then it's also noted that there's a 6 foot wide sidewalk that they will be proposing on the north side of the public street. Then, excuse me, for easement and right-of-way vacations, as part of the resolution in your packet this evening, they're proposing to vacate 3 easements, or 2 easements under right-of-way. The first area in green is the right-of-way that I highlighted at the beginning of the presentation. That's the 33-foot wide strip adjacent to Kings Road. We likely would not put a street next to an already existing street, so that could be vacated with city council approval. There's also a 30-foot electric easement that only services the property directly to the west. That's anticipated that their electric service will come with the new development and the public street. And then lastly, on the south side, this 50-foot driveway easement is also in place for the property owner to the west. He is comfortable with vacating that easement and having a private connection to the turnaround on the public street. And then for our fire department's review, that turnaround that I just mentioned, they requested some additional depth on the south portion of the turnaround to accommodate their fire apparatus. And then since this road would be parking on only one side only, they've asked for the no parking signage on the other side of the street. They did not have any other comments regarding access or fire. And then I will pass it over to Kara for a couple slides.
Good evening, Acting Mayor, members of the City Council. First, just covering wetlands and stormwater management. So this property is located within Minnehaha Creek Watershed District, so is subject to district rules and regulations. They are anticipating minor impacts to wetlands within the site, but they're working through that process, or will need to continue to work through that process with MCWD as the LGU for wetland impacts. But they are proposing a stormwater basin on this parcel here in an outlot deeded to the city. So that's consistent with city requirements for doing so. And then next, moving on to utilities. So as Brian noted, the utilities would be extended to serve this area from Interlochen, located over on the west side of the property. Because of grades, so there's like 40 foot of elevation change between this parcel and the topography through the site. This sewer line over here isn't deep enough to provide gravity sewer to serve the area, so a lift station needs to be constructed. I just want to go back to here. So they're proposing to construct the lift station to serve the property down in this area. And then what would happen then is they would have a force main that would come up through the roadway, turn to the north, and then come through an easement back to a little piece of force main that exists over in Interlaken. So that's a 4-inch diameter pipe that would be installed in that location. And then they're proposing to parallel the water main extension adjacent to it. With all of the topography here, one more thing I want to note. To do so, they do need to obtain an easement from the adjacent property owner to locate the sewer and water within that location. It's my understanding from Brian that that property owner is agreeable to the easement, but we haven't seen easement language or anything to that effect yet. One thing that I did just want to highlight is that the assistant city engineer is working with the developer's engineer regarding the constructability and feasibility of making these extensions within the available easements or right-of-way that exist. So as an example, there's like 25 feet of elevation change from Interlaken down to the trail. So needing to understand how they would get boring equipment into the area in order to be able to construct the extension is something the two parties have been talking through. And that is it.
And then back to me. I know that you've received some comments from some adjacent residents out in this area, so I thought it would be worth highlighting some of the adjacent developed residential areas just to the east in the Chanhassen border. So the Cimarron development from 2004, they proposed 10 single-family lots on about 5.5 acres. Their density came out pretty close to what the applicant is proposing today. They had 14,810 square foot minimum lot sizes there with 19,602 maximum lot sizes, also pretty similar to what the developer is proposing tonight. And then lastly, the Lake St. Joe Cove development from 2013, they had 8 homes on 4.9 acres, so actually a lower density than what the applicant is proposing this evening. Similar lot sizes again as well in the minimum and maximum range. So just some helpful context about how these lots could fit in with the neighborhoods to the east. And then a public hearing was held with the Planning Commission at their regular meeting last week on January 20th. We did properly advertise that with 2 consecutive postings for the proposed easement vacations. We also sent that notice to residents within 350 feet of the development's boundaries, posted online and at City Hall. We did receive 1 comment prior to the agenda being published for this case this evening. It was attached to your case. And then we received 3 comments afterwards, which I'm aware that council has been notified of those and received copies of those comments. So you're well aware those concerns generally had concerns regarding public safety, fire access, increased traffic and infrastructure, changes in property values, easement acquisition with the Arboretum properties, as well as public transparency and potentially improper notice. So at that Planning Commission meeting on January 20th, we did have 3 individuals speak at that public hearing. You've heard from one of them this evening already regarding the Arboretum and the easement area. So the Planning Commission did discuss that, as well as the inclusion of possibly a full sidewalk going around the turnaround and going on the south side of that public street, as well as clarification on that utility corridor and fire access. So the Planning Commission did end up trying to make 2 motions at that meeting. Both of them failed, 1 to approve, 1 to table. So no motion was actually approved, or no recommendation was carried to the City Council this evening. So that's why you are seeing it now instead of it going back to the Planning Commission. So I have some suggested conditions of approval here that were provided by our review with the Planning Commission and staff's review internally. The first one being the approval of the comp plan amendment by the Metropolitan Council. And then after that, it's our typical boilerplate requirements for final plat submittals, complying with regulatory agencies and approvals, submitting title work, a demo permit for the existing home that's out there when they move forward. And then lastly, we added a condition which is unique to this site, a requirement of the feasibility and constructability of that proposed utility corridor from Interlochen to the west, with review by our city engineer here. And then, as always, if you have any other conditions that you would like to apply that are reasonable for the development, you can also add them during the discussion this evening. And lastly, just a note for those in the audience who are interested in this proposed development, if they receive approval this evening, they would proceed with a final plat submittal, which would again be considered by the city council. There's no public hearing process for that. They would be coming in just to receive final approval. So you could attend that meeting when it comes out, but you may not get the chance to speak at that meeting, just letting you know. And then alternatively, if they receive denial, there is a chance that they could revise their plan and return with a different concept. So just keep those in mind. If you're interested, sign up for our emails to be notified of potential development projects and follow our social media to stay in the know as well. With that, I have 3 sample motions for the City Council to consider this evening. Staff can stand for questions, and we have representatives of the application in the audience tonight.
Thank you, Mr. McCann. So, Council, I'll open the discussion to us for comment and clarification.
This is the most senior ranking official.
All right,
I think
I'll
you
go.
should start us
All
off.
right.
Chad.
So first I want to recognize that, I mean, this is a very unique development. I don't think you have one like this in the city, right, where we're going through, right, you have to completely go through Chanhassen, take Chanhassen roads to get to a Victoria neighborhood. So it's a little different, right? I mean, I think there's things we have to think about that we don't typically think about. To be honest, I'm torn on this development. We've gotten a lot of comments, respectful, great comments. Some of them I agree with, right? And some of them I don't, right? I do think, this neighborhood, this new proposed neighborhood, does not take away from the current neighborhood, right? These are decent sized lots. They're $1.7 million to $2.5 million homes. We're not talking about shanties, right? We're talking about nice, well-built homes. That being said, I do have some concerns. I guess I'll start with, the access. And, we've heard from a lot of people about Appendix D. And I guess I have a question about that, is that, my understanding, right, is that it's not something that has to be, in reference to Appendix D, that's not something that has to be, we don't have to incorporate that, and we may in the future, but I believe, right, in these types of situations, there are often times where we don't incorporate all of an appendix, right, because it might not fit, right? So Appendix D might not completely work for the city of Victoria because there are issues and things that our fire chief sees that don't make sense. So, Ms. Hardy, can you speak to, I guess, timing of when this Appendix D could potentially come before us, and it is I guess what we're looking at, I guess, with Appendix D?
Acting Mayor, Councilmember Roberts, members of the council, yes, excellent question. So as you all know, we have kicked off earlier, well, I guess late last year, we kicked off a multi-year project of comprehensive project of doing a full review of our Victoria City Code. So that includes our zoning code as well as our municipal code. So we do know that that's going to be a multi-year project. with that, we're reviewing every section, every word, every sentence of that code, doing deep dive research. We're looking at all sorts of different sources of information. So, for example, the fire code, we're looking at that, but we're also looking at other ordinances. So, what ordinances have other cities adopted? And then we look at our unique needs for our own community. So you're looking at that in terms of what works for how do we have existing development? How do our ordinances work within our existing development? But if we were to adopt that, so what would the impacts be to the broader community if we brought in new language or modified language? And also looking at out to our future. So how are we being able to respond to the evolving needs of our community? So we're doing that. The fire code is just one piece of how many pages are in our code? Probably close to 1,000 pages between the two.
Last I checked, it's between 500 and 600.
600 pages. So we are doing that deep dive. Our city attorneys are involved with that. All of city staff are involved with that. Our planning commission, our other advisory boards. And so it is going to be a heavy lift. We initially had conversations and we're hoping to bring something specific to the fire code on the front end of the project. But there are a number of things that we're looking. So some of the concerns that were raised, particularly in the Planning Commission or with this particular development, have to do with access, but Appendix D does speak to other things beyond access, and we need to have a full understanding of all the things that are in there and what the potential impact could be to our existing, and then as we continue to grow, future growth. And so that's the level of evaluation that we're going to, that we anticipate will still be ongoing. And so right now I don't have an exact time frame. It's not going to be in the next couple of months. It'll probably be much later than that, just because there's a lot to look through. So I do not have an exact time frame on that, but hopefully that gives a little bit more clarity and context as to just the comprehensive project and how involved it is.
Thank you.
So, Madam City Manager, fair to say that it's not prudent to make a rush to judgment on adopting, say, Appendix D without staff really exploring what potentially unintended consequences we might trigger in doing so. So we would behoove us to spend the time to understand what that means and whether, for instance, is, say, retroactive and then perhaps putting some other projects in jeopardy. Is that fair?
That is fair.
Thank you.
Sorry for putting you on the spot. I'm not going to make any friends tonight, but can I go back in time a little bit? And I'm not sure if I should be asking you or Attorney Vos, but we had documentation somewhere that said that Chanhassen denied the approval of this, of a sketch plat, or denied this development. Did this actually ever make it to Chanhassen City Council as a sketch plat for a denial, or was this just north of napkin drawings and in a local meeting?
Acting Mayor and Councilmember Pedersen, more so the latter. They were starting to put together concept plans after initial discussions with city staff, as most development proposals start. Initially, they were asking about the potential for Chanhassen utilities. The Chanhassen City Council was exploring that opportunity and received significant public turnout on the idea of extending Chanhassen utilities to Victoria properties. So they ended up not approving the utility extension from Chanhassen, but they never formally approved any sketch plat.
There was never a formal denial of sketch plat.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. and I take these seriously for everybody around. I take notes and I take everything you guys write to me and I watch all the videos and I go through it all and I try to answer them in the most concise way possible. So hopefully that hits a few of the different questions that were asked. As far as emergency response, our fire chief has taken a look at it and decided that this is something that he can support. On top of that, the local fire groups within the Southwest Metro have a joint response task force and protocol where they meet on at least an annual basis to go through what they can do and how they can respond. Is that correct?
Councilmember Pedersen, that is correct.
All right, good. As far as law enforcement is concerned, this would be 15 extra homes for the Carver County Sheriff to patrol on top of what they're already doing. I do not believe Chanhassen has a police department and Victoria does not have a police department. So we're adding 15 homes for Carver County Sheriff's Department to patrol. They're comfortable with that?
Councilmember Pedersen, correct, to my knowledge.
Okay, great, thank you. On top of that, we've also had the DNR review this, and the DNR is comfortable with everything that has been laid out so far.
Correct.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the right-of-way, and I'm starting to not totally get right-of-way anymore, and then I think I have it all, and then I'm back to square one. So the city of Chanhassen at one point in time decided it would be a great idea to build a street right on the border of Victoria, thus negating any benefits for right-of-way for the city of Victoria or Chanhassen, where our only real option is to donate it to the person who decides to do some level of development. Is that a rude way of putting it, or is that somewhat accurate?
Acting Chair and Councilmember Pedersen, I'm not exactly sure when that roadway or road right-of-way was put into place or the intention behind it. Based on its alignment, I assumed it's part of a potential road in the future, as most streets are parallel. So I'm not quite sure. I don't have the history on that, unfortunately.
Fair to say that right-of-way off of Kings Road into the city of Victoria, there's really not much we can do with it other than develop it for some other level of development or do nothing with it. It's land that we own that we can't do anything with, and it just sits there.
Correct. It has no public purpose.
No public value is what I'm looking for.
Mr. McCann, can we clarify? So that the easement that is being asked to be vacated on the eastern edge of this parcel, is that a parcel of land that's attached contiguously to whoever owns this large parcel, or is that a piece of land that's owned by the city of Victoria?
Acting Chair and council members, technically neither. It is a portion of right-of-way. It's not a true parcel that the city owns. It's a area that could potentially be used for streets, utilities, public services. In the event, I think what Councilmember Pedersen was trying to get to is there's really no value in this land with an existing public street adjacent to it, if I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to. And the point is we can't really sell it because nobody owns it, because the street was put there.
Correct.
And you're just referring to the green shaded area?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, Mayor, Acting Mayor, again, just clarification. So to the extent the green stuff here identified as Kings Road, which is just a slice of Kings Road, to the extent that would be vacated by you, I mean, first of all, I take it the entirety of the green area is in Victoria, and the boundary between Victoria and Chanhassen is the eastern edge of the green shaded thing we're looking at here.
Correct.
So to the extent Victoria were to grant the vacation of the Kings Road green parcel, it is owned by somebody, right? The underlying fee title to that land is owned by somebody. I think we're led to believe, I haven't done title work, right? That the point at which I am asked to do a plat opinion, a title opinion, is at final plat stage. So I have not seen comprehensive title work on this, but I guess I'm led to understand that the abutting owner, which is the developer here, will own this land. Brian, am I saying that right? I mean, this is something you and I have talked about, and I think we're led to believe, again, I'll get comprehensive title work when we get to that point, if you get to that point. But I'm led to understand when you vacate, if you were to vacate Kings Road, the green section, the developer will own the underlying fee to that land. This will become part of the development parcel.
But Counselor, I think where I'm trying to clarify is that this is an easement over a piece of land that is owned fee simple by someone, we may not know who. It's not dissimilar to how Bavaria Road, where the property owners own the land all the way to the center of the street, and just over the course of history, an easement was granted for the use of a road.
Yep.
So,
Acting Mayor, that's exactly right. I mean, that's what a road right-of-way, it's not, I can't say that's always what it is, but almost always. A road right-of-way, that term's been thrown around in a lot of the comments you've seen. A road right-of-way is a easement in favor of the public to use for a road over land that somebody owns.
right. So in essence, if it's not going to be used as a road, it is not truly a thing of value. So if it's not a thing of value, then one should really not reasonably expect a remuneration for giving up an easement. There is no real property there. There is no separate PIN number that establishes it as so.
Acting Mayor and Council, I mean, this is a really common misconception, which is that to the extent the government has a interest in right-of-way, right? The city has a road somewhere. To the extent that's true, and then the city vacates that road, by law, somehow the city owns what it has just vacated and can sell it. That's just wrong. That's not true.
So I think we're in alignment on our understanding of it. That once that's vacated, it essentially returns back to the original parcel that was subdivided to create that owner's lot. And that land really then, once vacated, belongs back to those owners. Or in other road vacations where properties are abutted to it and it's vacated, then typically those are returned in a pro rata share to the owners of that vacated former road parcel. In this case, we can somewhat reasonably believe that this parcel's original boundaries, when it was platted and divided up out of the section range township, put the ownership of that parcel right to the edge of the section line, which is probably where the city of Chanhassen ends and the city of Victoria begins.
Yeah. Acting Mayor, you are very accurately stating what I anticipate concluding when we see that complete. I anticipate concluding that the owner of the land to the west was at some point historically the owner of this little section of Kings Road, and thus is still the owner. There's just an easement over that, and so when the easement goes away, if you vacate it, if you elect to do that, the owner will be the landowner to the west.
Okay, thank you.
I expect to conclude that.
So that was a really roundabout way, and I'm at fault for starting it. But basically, there were questions as to how we can vacate or how we can get rid of a right-of-way without public knowledge of it or public access to it. And the fact of the matter is the person that lives or the person or the ownership of that land is really the only one that would have access to that right-of-way because it is theirs.
Acting Mayor, council members, so I'm going to make this as short as I possibly can. Vacations of road rights of ways by city is governed by statute. There's a law that says how cities can do this. And that law creates I'm not going to say it's an elaborate process, but a process for giving notice to people, giving them the right to come to a hearing and say why you should or shouldn't do this vacation. And then at the conclusion of all that, the city has by statute the ability to vacate the road or a section of the road. In that process, the city is required to give notice to anyone that might be impacted by or anyone that has an interest in that road. And that, I'm led to understand, has occurred here. The city has given the required notice to anyone who might be impacted by this vacation. They have now had the right to appear at the Planning Commission and give their testimony about why it should or shouldn't happen. That proceeding is over. That's been completed. And so now it's to you to decide whether you want to vacate or not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. McKenna, I have a question for you. Perhaps you know, perhaps you don't. Along the northern edge of this parcel, do we, the city of Victoria, have enough of an easement that would exist between Fox Hollow Drive and the northern edge of this parcel, which might, for instance, you could reasonably, that sits really on the other side of the northern edge of Lot 7 in between Fox Hollow Drive.
Acting Mayor and council members, yes, there is a platted drainage and utility easement on the north side of this shared property line that went in with the Fox Hollow development just to the north. Regarding size, I think it's 20 feet. I'm looking to our city engineer who's pulling that up right now. So there's at least a 20-foot strip of easement for a significant portion, probably coming up to approximately this wetland area. There's a 20-foot drainage and utility easement here. And then after that, because of the wetland area, that easement gets much larger. Oh, smaller, apparently. Sorry, that's different than what we would typically see. So yes, there is a drainage and utility easement for a significant portion that is 20 feet wide on the north side of this property line.
Fox Hollow Drive is a public road, not private? It's private, so I thought, sorry. Again, a small question that was brought up or comment that was brought up regarding the fact that the closest park to this facility that's a Victoria Park was Lions Park. I would say Madeline Creek and Goodman Park are both closer. Both have an easier way to get to them. They're within 3/4 of a mile, would you say? Half a mile? Again, not a huge deal, but a comment that was brought up that I wanted to clarify. There was a lot of information or emails regarding the fact there's no public benefit to this. I tend to disagree with the people that sent that for a main reason. Carver County determines property tax value. The city of Victoria's levies about 20% of that. So 80% of the property tax that is being collected is going to Carver County. So Carver County is still going to be receiving the lion's share of any sort of property taxes for this area. So there is a level of public benefit, in my opinion. It's not quite as much as for the people of Chanhassen if this area was in Chanhassen, but there's still a substantial public benefit financially. I do not have a crystal ball to tell you what properties are going to be valued at when people want to resell their homes and things like that later. But I will say for the people that are in Chanhassen, it's a similar size development based on the app that I had when I drove around and looked at home prices.
Speaking of that, can we go to that slide that compares this proposed development to the other two? Yep, there we go. Thank you. So, I guess it fits in the surrounding areas, the surrounding communities. And I didn't mean to cut you off if you were still going.
No, and you're getting to another point of mine. Yes, it fits for Chanhassen, but for the existing lots in Victoria, these are 3, 4, 5 acre lots that are that surround it from the standpoint of the city of Victoria.
Beyond the Chan.
So if you look to the lots that are south of the development, 3, 4, again, estimations, we'll call them 4 acre lots. There's 3 or 4 of them to the south and then 3 or 4 of them to the north. And the north, correct me if I'm wrong, is where the tornado went through last year, right? Oh, somewhere around there. Anyway, just from a reference point. So those are kind of my thoughts. I don't know. What else do you guys think?
I think it's fair to bring up the point that our comprehensive plan for 2040 designated this area with this level of density to it. And in fact, the density as proposed is lower than what the comprehensive plan calls for. And if I understand our packet properly, there's heartburn with respect to the plan as to this density is actually being lower than what councils before us identified as the density for that area. So while it's not congruent with some of the other homes in the area, it is what was laid out in the comprehensive plan. And I think also, before us, we don't have a PUD. We have an application that meets the criteria that has been spelled out in ordinance for what fits in the space. Where I think we have some heartburn is that we have a neighbor to the east that is the connectivity for ingress and egress to this parcel. And, so with respect to that, being neighborly is what we in this part of the world are, view as very, very valid and very hallmarks of how we view our interactions with each other. So with respect to that, where I have difficulty with this is that we have no park here to serve an area, and there is no park in the surrounding areas of our neighbors. So given that we are asking our neighbors to have traffic come through, will be somewhat inconvenienced until this is all built out. And once this is built out and lots are closed and, people have done their landscaping, all the sturm and drain about construction, debris, and dust and all that will be a distant memory. I think
I will be worse.
I think that no subdivision in America would be built if you had to hold it up because somebody said, I don't like the construction traffic. It's part of development, as painful as that is at times.
I think what you're saying too is it's legal. And if we go back in time from our comprehensive plan of 2040, if we go back to 2030, 2020 comprehensive plans, this area has been designated as single-family home. Right. I don't want to say the last 30 years, but I think the last 20 for sure. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Councilmember Pedersen, at least for the 2030 plan, it has been guided for low-density residential.
Okay.
I did not go as far back as 2020, but I would assume the same, given that there are existing neighborhoods surrounding it.
And with our when was our R1 agricultural or whatever it's called now, where we are allowed to, the Met Council allowed us to have larger lots? Because as it stands right now, legally, Norton can go in there and put up 23, 24 homes, and there's really nothing we can do about it. But if we rezone it with the new zoning, is it R1A or R1?
What? Reservation, residential
R1
conservation.
reservation conservation. We require them to have larger lots. Otherwise, they could go in legally in the city of Victoria and put 23 homes in here. So I think we're helping to protect the sanctity of part of the neighborhood. As I said, I'm probably not going to make any friends tonight, but I think the asking for the comprehensive plan amendment from R1 to the others, whatever it's called, makes sense for this neighborhood, and it's protecting them. Conservation. That's the word I was looking for. Anyway. What else?
I think there's some question. There was a question from a resident about the movement of a fire hydrant, and I believe Ms. Hardy talked to the fire chief about that. Can you fill us in, I guess, on what he shared with you?
I can do that.
Thank you, Chad.
Acting Mayor, Councilmember Roberts, members of the council, yes, I did speak to our fire chief this afternoon to just get clarification on what was being proposed. So Mr. McCann, Chief Stoger, and I did take a look at the plans and look at what is being proposed. So It is the roadway or the driveway will be coming in, is proposed to come in where the existing hydrant sits today. And so what is being proposed is that that hydrant just moves to the other side of where that road is. So we're not talking about a significant movement, but it would be moving to allow that driveway to come in. And so the fire chief today, as it stands, does not have any concerns about fire suppression for that particular property. If that were to be approved and if that were to be incorporated as part of the plan, so that being the moving of the fire hydrant, how fires would be suppressed in the future would be the same as they are today. And so from a service impact, the fire chief was not seeing any concerns.
And from a benefit to that property owner, they're currently not on sewer and water, so they would have that ability in the future.
To connect to city utilities. Yes. That is correct.
So I'm gonna kind of go in a different direction here. So I think you guys talked about a little bit, Brian and Kara, you talked about the significant topography change from where utilities need to come from and to get to this site. So, I mean, I guess my understanding a little bit is there is maybe skepticism is a strong word, but there is some reservation about how easily that can be done, and the financial viability of actually doing so. In addition, I believe that the developer needs to get permission from 3 different entities to be able to do this. I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but you have that from the private property owner, but my understanding is that we also need to go under the trail, which would mean that you need permission from the county. My understanding is there's a creek that we would have to go under as well, and I'm not sure if that's the watershed district that would have to approve that or who would have to approve that. But I'm wondering if the developer has talked to any of those people yet, if they have approval to be able to go under, because this is my understanding, I guess, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but
Okay, I'm going to talk then, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Acting Mayor, members of the City Council, and certainly the developer's engineer and developer could speak to some of the specifics about where they are in their due diligence associated with the utility extension. But I just want to highlight a few things here that you were referring to. So this property here is the Lake Minnetonka Regional Trail. So this used to be owned by the Hennepin County Regional Rail Authority, who had one set of expectations for how you could cross their property with things like utilities. The ownership of this property has now been transferred to Carver County, so I think the council's probably aware of that Carver County now owns the trail within the city of Victoria. So permission, whatever form that needs to come from Carver County, whether it's a license agreement, easement, permit, I can't speak to because they just took over ownership of this trail, so I can't tell you what their past practice would have been. Hennepin County Regional had a particular process you had to go to permit utilities through their property. And then from a topography perspective, from Interlochen, as I was noting, it drops down about 25 feet and then comes back up. The easement that the city retained when the city conveyed the 26 acres of land to ultimately the Arboretum comes like right up through here. So I'm going to torture you with looking at contours a little bit, but the elevation change from like where this person's house is down to here is 40 feet. So the utilities are proposed to come there's like a little bit of a ridge if you're out there at all. There's a little bit of a higher spot in here so they need to get an easement from Alec Wilson to come through here to get around this 40-foot deep kind of creek area. That doesn't require any permits from anybody unique. So the city would need to approve the easement that would be granted by Mr. Wilson to the city. We would expect that easement to be a standard drainage and utility easement, giving the city whatever typical rights we have under a drainage and utility easement, and then connect it back through here. So you can see this area is pretty wooded. So they are proposing to use directional drilling in order to install these utilities with minimizing the impacts to the trees and the land around it. But it's a pretty long run. So I've been talking with Amanda, assistant city engineer, about talking with them to understand what the actual constructability is associated with that extension. So as an example, when you're dealing with this type of grade change, there might be a need for there to be a pit located halfway between the run of the pipe in order to facilitate the construction of the underground utilities. And when I look at this, I'm wondering how you access this area with equipment, for example, in order to dig a deep hole adjacent to a 40-foot deep slope. It's just a more complicated utility extension than we typically see. So that's why we've been trying to flush out, is it financially feasible and is it viable within the easements that these people are willing to grant and permission from Carver County in order to make that extension. In addition, the Public Works Department needs to be on board with what the construction ends up being. So as another example, you could avoid this pit by potentially putting the utilities 25 feet deep. We typically do not have water main 25 feet deep. Water main breaks. So would Public Works be comfortable with a water main that deep? I don't know. We haven't gotten to that level of detail yet. Typically, this stuff gets flushed out further in the process when we start to get into final construction plan development that developers usually do after they have land entitlements. Then just lastly, when we're talking about the developability of these parcels, the 26 acres that were transferred to the Arboretum compared to the parcels over here, a developer owned this land since 1996 and was not able to sell it for development because in order to have access from Interlochen, you would need to either construct a bridge or a pedestrian underpass for the trail in order to facilitate access to the site. So access was a huge limiting factor for this parcel to be able to develop with this creek here and the 25-foot elevation change in this area. So that's why over 25 years, however many years that is, more than 25, he wasn't able to develop it.
So I just want to confirm, so they will need some sort of permission from the county to dig underneath the trail. There isn't a creek that they will need to go under that will require some sort of permission?
It wouldn't require any permission. It's just what's the constructability of it, and then is the Public Works Department going to find it acceptable to have that level of grade change in those facilities? Because we'll be responsible for maintaining those facilities. They're city-owned.
So I have very big concerns about this. And I guess I'm wondering we don't know if the county will let them dig underneath the trail. There's a big feasibility issue, I think, and cost with getting this through here. And so, and I'll ask Bob a question here in a second, but if there's any appetite from the council to table this until we know if the county will approve it, and what the feasibility study says. And I guess my question for Bob would be, if we tabled this, what does that do with our statutory obligations with the 60-day rule and such?
Well, and to add to that, what does it do for our 60-day rule? And then there's another rule that's in play here that's outside of the 60 days, correct?
Yeah,
Whole process?
acting mayor, council members, good questions. Yeah, so that's right. I mean, you have three matters in front of you tonight, right? Preliminary plat, vacation of an easement, and the comp plan amendment. And as it happens, those are all subject to different statutory frameworks. The legislature, in its infinite wisdom, has seen fit to have different rules for those three kinds of applications. And so, yeah, council member, you're right. The comp plan amendment request is theoretically subject to a 60-day review. I take it we've extended that, or have implicitly extended that through the 120 on the plat. So regardless, plats are 120 days, and then vacation, there isn't really a timeline at all statutorily. There's a whole statutory process, but it doesn't include a timeline. So you're quite right to ask the question. It would not toll or table the timelines if we were to table our decision pending some further research on this. We still would be stuck with the 120 days in particular for approving or denying the plat, and that's the one that I focus upon because that one in particular says if you don't do it, then it's approved. So
When
that's
did that clock start?
I want to say it came in October 10th, 15th, 20th.
Acting mayor and council members, that was their initial submittal. They had a few additional things to work through. Staff deemed that submittal incomplete. They submitted revised submittals that met our requirements in early December. So from a clock perspective, we're about 45 days into the process.
Then, acting mayor, to your question, council member, maybe I can punt a little bit this over to staff, but I was going to ask a question before you asked the question of me, and that is that I think, Brian, you pointed out that there is a somewhat unique condition in the proposed preliminary plat approval, which is applicants shall provide verification of the feasibility and constructability of the public utilities within available right-of-way and easements prior to final plat submittal. And I think we've now heard from Kara, from your city engineer, we've heard that there are some challenges to proving up the feasibility of that. And I take it that Kara, your city engineer, is going to have to take a hard look at the feasibility presentation that would have to be made to her before a final plat could be applied for. So, I mean, I think the staff has to be convinced that this can actually happen before the applicant moves on to the next stage. Is that a fair summary of what's going on here? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I share Councilmember Roberts' concern about moving forward to approving this even with the condition that those are completed before final plat. I think we have too many open questions. I'm still not comfortable with that, us being the city of lakes and parks, that we're not getting parkland dedicated to the city of Victoria for an amenity that is sorely lacking in this area. And that there is a little bit less rural characteristics of this area that this development will bring. And I think that those amenities need to be there. So despite what the Planning Commission, or I'm sorry, the Park and Rec view on accepting cash in lieu, I think we need to work harder on getting parkland here. So on those two items, I'm not comfortable with going with approval this evening. So,
could I ask one other question on that? So if we table it, in order to properly notice the tabling, we would have to do that tomorrow to give 2-week notice. Is that right? So it's a yes or a no, or is that not right?
Yeah, acting mayor and council members, and I'll turn to you, Brian. Well, so I misread the rather lengthy staff report materials to think that the application was sufficiently submitted in October. That's wrong. Apparently it was more like December or something. And so it sounds like the 120 days on preliminary plat wouldn't run for 4 months from sometime in December. And the comp plan amendment consideration, which is initially 60 days, can be extended by you out to 120 days. So that deadline would be the same. So what am I saying? December, January, February, March sometime? And so it would be perfectly fine to table within that 120-day window and then bring it back prior to the conclusion of that 120 days, if that's the will of the council. My only hesitance on that is I don't have a dog in the race here, so I don't, it's up to you, not at all me. I just am a little uncomfortable with expecting feasibility to be proven up within that timeline by March, because I don't know what goes into that. So maybe engineers in the room can advise us all about that a little bit. But that's the one thing that jumps out at me, that, that proposed condition, I take it, could have been met later than March, just as long as no final plat was applied for until sometime later after the feasibility was.
My roundabout question was, I don't want to table it and have all this stuff get approved because we tabled it.
Yep.
So, thank you.
Mayor, acting mayor, in terms of timeline, certainly the developer can speak for themselves, but I know they've already been taking a look at this, so I don't anticipate that process is going to take months. They need to connect with the contractor, put together some plan and profile. Again, this is a level of detail that we typically don't see a preliminary plat that we're asking for given the unique circumstances here. So, they'd be better equipped to speak to how much time they need, but I would imagine they're already working on it.
Is it appropriate to hear from the developer on this?
Yes.
Good evening, Acting Mayor and council members. My name is Pat Hiller. I'm one of the partners with Norton Homes.
And would you state your address, please, for the record?
10739 Allison Way. I live in Inver Grove Heights.
Thank you.
And I'd like to introduce John Molinaro. He's with Pioneer Engineering. He's the engineer for this project. So, John, do you want to speak to some of these issues here?
Yes, we have John Molinaro with Pioneer Engineering, 2422 Enterprise Drive, Mendota Heights. We've been working on the preliminary design of the water main and the force main that comes through the north side of the property and head to the west to interlock in. We have been working with a contractor to start addressing those constructability process, and with the city assistant engineer and looking at the profiles. We're all in agreement that it is rather steep and there's constraints and that we have to work within, but everybody thinks there is a way to get it done.
All right.
How, Kara, from our perspective, they may feel that it's feasible and it's good for them, but obviously, right, we want it to be good for our public works and for I'm assuming we just look at their plans and then determine if, this is going to be dangerous for our public work, or right? I guess, can you speak to that a little bit about how?
Sure. So the city has adopted design standards. It's that book that you approve every couple of years that has detailed information about what's allowed and not allowed. So to the extent that they need to request a deviation from those standards, the city would need to approve that. That happens at a staff level unless it's something really out of the ordinary from what the city typically does. So Public Works will need to review whatever they're proposing, and then we'll have to decide if whatever deviation they're asking for is acceptable or not. And depending on what that is, we typically have not had to ask the council to weigh in on that. We've done some of that with the council with private streets where we've had some deviation from standard that we've reviewed with the city council. So I don't want to speculate about whether or not the council would need to weigh in on that until I know what the design looks like. But certainly,
But it's certainly possible because it's such a unique and difficult area.
As an example, typically, 25-foot deep water main is not something that's common. Right. So 40-foot deep sewer, that is common, but this is force main, so it's a little bit different. We need to be able to have access to it and figure all that out.
Can the developer speak to if you've talked to Carver County about drilling under the trail at all?
Good evening, Councilmember Roberts. We have not yet talked to them about that. I guess I was under the assumption that the corridor that we have across the Arboretum land was sufficient. I haven't talked to anyone at the county about that yet, but we certainly can. I don't anticipate why it would be a problem, but it would just be a matter of getting all the right people.
As it stands today, that easement in that property, the 26 acres that is so popular, right now that's under the control of Carver County, correct? Like that hasn't been sold or given to the Arboretum?
Yeah, the deeds, it hasn't, to my understanding, so we're
Okay.
not a part of that process, but
Yeah.
from my understanding, it hasn't been conveyed
So
to the University of Minnesota yet. But the easement has been recorded. So the easement that we preserved on the property has been recorded and is our easement.
So for this, the ownership of that land doesn't matter?
Correct.
Thank you.
Easement is what matters in this instance.
And then that just takes us halfway. Then the other part is private property that we need to, or Norton would need to, from what I understood, bore down 40 feet and go underneath everything and not touch any of the above ground property because we can't do a path there either. So it's,
Yeah, the depth typically, depending on where they are in that profile that they're working on, it may not need to be that deep through those parts of the property, but they'll provide the detailed information to the city for review.
till all the trees start dying.
And I do, one of the things we would subsequently be talking about with them if you approved it or if you tabled it is just making sure that we're starting to work on what that easement language looks like with that property owner. Because as I noted, the city's expectation would be that it'd be a standard city drainage and utility easement.
Fair enough. I want to get back to park dedication with Mayor Pro Tem Evansky. And I'd like other council persons' opinion on this, but we saw a sketch plat, we made recommendations, and I don't think, was there anything that was changed? I mean, to me, it looked a lot like what it was at sketch plat. Just from my own recollection, I live in an area that has sidewalks all the way around. I want connective sidewalks as best as possible to everywhere that we can go. We got sidewalks on one side of the street. I believe I requested to have the lift station moved to the back end of the property. That didn't happen. And as we've heard already tonight, engineering can get it done. There's a way to get it done no matter what. So that didn't happen. We've got a street right-of-way in the middle of the property, which would be great parkland dedication. And then down the road, maybe if something happens, you can redevelop further down the road once the other land is sold. But I don't know. This is, again, I'm asking you guys, did you feel the same way? I saw it and I'm like, nothing has changed from sketch plat. Or did I miss something?
Well, for matter of record, Councilmember Pedersen, I will point out that when this came for council or sketch plat, I was absent from that council meeting. And so had I been there, I would have voiced my concerns about parkland.
Looking back on it, I think my point was Councilmember Evansky would want sidewalk all the way around this property. I think that was what I said and why it was in my notes. So anyway, sorry. But
you are correct that Councilmember Evansky generally regards sidewalks on both sides of developments.
I mean, I agree with you, Mayor Pro Tem. I mean, it is concerning to me about the park, right? Like, I mean, I think you said, right, a half mile or 3/4 of a mile away, but this is that unique situation, right, where we have a neighboring city, or right, a neighboring, in Chanhassen development, and everything that this new Victoria neighborhood would do is going to impact that Chanhassen neighborhood, and I know, right, like parks are public, right, so anyone can go. If they want to come into my park, they can come into the park in my neighborhood. However, I will say, generally speaking, unless it's a destination park, right, like a Wasserman Park, or right, like you're not, right, most people maybe, right, like we have some people that might, because there's a trail that goes through our neighborhood, they'll stop from their next door neighborhood and they'll walk and they'll go to the park there. But generally speaking, like you're not getting a ton of people in those small little neighborhood ones because they don't know it's there. They don't, right? Like it's not a destination. And so that's where my concern is that I don't think this, I guess I don't know the size of this park exactly. Like, I don't think it's a destination park, but, you know, like we're again, like, we're going to be adversely affecting that. And that's, you know, back to my points about the feasibility study and, you know, making sure that it actually works. Like that's where I would like to see what our engineers, right, see what the actual plan is, their feasibility study, see if Kara and our team think that it's actually a viable solution and not, you know, adversely affecting our public works group, and making sure, because again, this is a unique situation, making sure Carver County will okay drilling underneath that trail, because you know they probably will, but we don't know that for sure. And I'm in agreement with those points. There's work to be done in that area.
And Councilmember Roberts, I'll just further draw on the question of the park. People find them, right? They discover them, they figure it out. And I think it's a completely reasonable ask to have a park here, have it funded by the city of Victoria, and I don't think it's any stretch whatsoever that the residents of the neighborhood immediately to the east would inure the benefit of it. Their public works department is plowing the streets for this neighborhood to get to the entrance. So I think it just shows, you know, a fair balance between, you know, the neighborliness of the city of Victoria and the city of Chanhassen, that in this particular interest there would be shared resources.
Well, and my point wasn't that there's not benefit with a park if we built a park in there, but my point was, right, they're used to their neighborhood using their park and not people probably coming in a lot to use their park, where now we're dropping 15 more of Victoria residents into a Chanhassen park.
Correct me, but I don't believe they even have a park in this area. Is that
Round Tower's a couple.
Is that correct?
Roundhouse or
Acting Chair and council members, if I can just interject for a moment here. I've got a parcel highlighted on the screen just down the road from the development. There is a 7.8 acre park, a very short walk away. It is a Chanhassen park, but as you mentioned, it is a public park open to anyone.
Thank you.
I mean, it's a destination. It would be, in Victoria, we call it a destination park. And I've been vocal about this in the past. I like the destination parks, but I think we need to maintain the neighborhood parks, or we need to continue to do that. And I know there's been pressure or a viewpoint of the council in the past to get away from them. I look back at our neighborhood park, and just when we were out on Night to Unite, you see the use of just not even an acre, you know, half an acre with a couple of picnic tables and a grill, and that's where dozens of people get together. And that's where I'm saying, where we now have street right-of-way in the middle of the property, that could very easily be a couple of picnic tables and a grill for green space for, you know, Andy and the boys to go out and play catch. And that's where I think it's lacking, because I don't necessarily want to, there isn't a path to Roundhouse Park. It's a little bit like Victoria with a couple of trail gaps there and sidewalk gaps, but so now you're walking on the street. So I think it's needed, and I think it's something that adds to the amenities within the neighborhood. Can the park be developed into right away down the road? Maybe, but I'd like to see it as parkland, and I'd like to see that lift house or put in the back corner as well. But
okay, so I'm sensing that we have consensus that approving this as formed is not the opinion.
I would say yes. I'm trying to think of.
Bob, if we tabled all the motions, we'd make three, it looks like. We'd make the three motions to table each of the different motions that we have here, not just one table.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I'd be fine with you just making a motion to table them all. If that's the will of the majority, that's fine to do.
And do we have to state why we're tabling it?
You do not. Now, see, to the extent you want feasibility investigated further, I think you should direct that to your staff.
I was just,
include
that's,
that, but
we should.
But are you legally required to? No, but yeah, tell your staff what you want them to do while you table it, right?
So here's my problem. I would probably approve 2 and 3. I would deny 1. Like, I think the easements and all that stuff, if we're looking to move forward and do something tonight rather than table, I would deny 1 and approve 2 and 3. Hopefully moving it in the right direction and then getting things to change. But I don't know. Does that make it too cloudy, Bob?
Mayor and Council, it doesn't make it too clumsy, I guess. Well, yes, it does. In this sense, to the extent you would deny the preliminary plat, that would have to include reasons for the denial. That does have to have reasons. And the right practice is to put that in writing. So usually were you to want to do that, you'd direct staff to have a resolution denying at your next meeting, setting out the reasons. So I, again, don't know where the will of the majority is, but if I were you, council member, I might make a motion to do that, giving direction to staff, and then say why you'd want it denied, and then a motion on the other 2 or something like that.
Okay. What are you guys thinking?
Well, I think if we deny the first one, then the other 2 are moot, and we would deny both of them along with it. So
I would agree with that.
it doesn't make sense to vacate easements for parcels that we don't need to give those up because we haven't approved we haven't approved the project at this point. So
My only thought process is we legally are going to do what we need to get it done, but the way it's put together now just doesn't jive with us. It's kind of my thought process, just so you know where I'm going with it. But I agree. I'd move to deny the resolution approving the preliminary plat for Bell Maple Farms residential development.
Can I, before you?
Sorry.
Do we want to deny or do we want to table pending further the feasibility, right? Like, and advising on feasibility study and
you guys want to table it instead?
and permit. I would like to see permission from Carver County to drill underneath the thing.
And I thought the reason we were looking at tabling is because we had some room on that 120 days.
Yes. But I mean, if
I just
we
think
don't like the thing, right? We can,
Right.
but we have to have a specific reason as to why we're not, because it's.
If we
this isn't
table
a
it, we
PUD.
create less work, and we still give them the opportunity to come back with it without us having
Right.
to throw out all the reasons why it was denied. I'd be up for tabling it, I guess.
And did you say we could make one motion for instead of all 3 to table, like a motion to table all 3?
Yeah, acting mayor and council members. I mean, to the extent, for example, you would table the preliminary plat because at least one council member wants to see some changes made to it. I think I might make a motion to table and explain what you want to see changed as part of that motion. So I guess I was fine with tabling everything if there wasn't going to be any complicating directions given. But if we're going to give direction on tabling the preliminary plat for feasibility, and we also want to see changes to it, then I think I might break out the tables.
Would it be fair enough to just table and then take the recommendations that we would like to see to staff, or do we need to make those public record? So I got another one that I'd like to save, tree number 12409 DBH 36. I mean, it seems like it's a reasonable request, and it's something that one of the neighbors wanted to have done. Doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal, but I'd make that as a condition moving forward too, if I'm going to be able to table the preliminary plat.
Well, council member, not to give away the store here from the city perspective, we at the staff level gain some traction when you say out loud here in public what it is you want to see. That makes it easier for us to get those things accomplished. So I think it's always preferable if you say, I'm tabling this because I want this, this, and this addressed. I think that benefits the public, it benefits the developer, it benefits your staff. So, But it's your call. I
This
can't
is
tell you
going to be
it's
a
required.
long table.
Yep.
You ready?
Council is a potential outcome would be to table the first resolution, deny the second two, and then when the preliminary plat comes back with the corrections, then staff can bring back the appropriate vacation easements and comp plan adjustments at that time.
Well, so Acting Mayor, I'm not going to sit here and debate that with you because it's your call to make entirely. Here's the only downside to doing that. Were you to, for example, deny the vacation, then you're going to have to start that process over to grant the vacation later. So that would involve new noticing of a hearing, holding of a hearing, et cetera, and I'm not sure what facts on the ground are going to change. But if you want to deny because you're not ready to approve, I'm not going to tell you not to. But that would be the downside, is you got to sort of start these things over.
I mean, I think we just tabled
Okay,
everything.
thank you, Councilor.
I mean, something that we didn't even touch is the fact that, I watch the Planning Commission. I lean on the Planning Commission. I think they do a lot of deep dive research for us. And I've never seen a 3-3 vote before. I mean, I know they're a recommending body, they're quasi-judicial, but 3-3 is enough at me to want to consider a lot of things that are going on with this. Anyway, that's my final point. Before we make a table, so the things that we'd want to see, I want to see the trees saved. We want to see the boring plan. We'd like to see a park. We'd like to see sidewalks all the way around. We would like to see
Approval from Carver County.
approval from Carver County.
review
That's boring.
Yeah, that's under the trail, yeah.
Boring approval.
And then the feasibility study.
So with that,
From Carver County and
with that, Councilmember Pedersen, would we like to make a motion?
I'm just making sure I'm getting all of them before we go through it, and then we forgot
one.
Pro Tem Ivansky's request for whatever, a park. I go through and I do it.
Park.
So we got
Correct.
boring approval from Carver County, a park, sidewalk all the way around.
Feasibility study.
Feasibility study. Oh yeah,
Well, I
gotta
think
save my
that
tree.
also another thing we discussed was ensuring that we get a size of easement that's acceptable to Public Works from the property owner immediately to the west of this parcel.
Size of easement acceptable to the west.
An acceptable easement that, should all those approvals take place, that Public Works has an adequate sized easement to maintain that infrastructure into perpetuity.
Can I just say an acceptable easement to the west, and staff can figure out what that means?
I think if staff can,
I have a suggestion for you. Just to jump in here, if you don't mind, maybe just something more simplistic, impact to Public Works for maintenance.
fair.
All right, you got it over there?
Also, council, I heard some conversation earlier about maybe exploring the ability to move that lift station, but I did not hear that as part of your motion.
I didn't think it could, yeah.
Yeah, they said from a gravity standpoint,
Yeah.
right? Yes.
I don't care about gravity. We can find a way to bore through all that stuff. We can stick a lift station up in that corner.
Because
No.
The downside, Councilmember Pedersen, of locating it in a different location is it gets significantly deeper, so it drives up the cost of maintenance for the city long-term.
So I'm not gonna get my lift station moved? Sorry.
Well, I think maybe a point of clarification. I understand that the lift station, as drawn, has been moved to that location from what was previously a less palatable location. So with respect to moving it, it sounded to me like that's been accomplished, and given the topography of the land, that this is the best place within the constraints. I think the developer's nodding yes, and we'll recognize that he's made that acknowledgement.
You got your motion, Christian?
I hope so. Let me see. I'd like to make a motion to table the resolution approving the preliminary plat for Bell Maple Farms residential development. I'd like to see more information and approval from Carver County for the boring. We'd like to see a public park. We'd like to see sidewalk go all the way around. We'd like to see a feasibility study. We'd like to save tree 12409 DBH 36. And we would like an acceptable easement to the west to help with impact for public works.
So we have a motion made by Councilmember Pedersen. Is there a second?
Second.
Acting Mayor, I'm the perfect foil for this question since I don't know the project at the level that the staff on the other side of the room do. So I'm going to ask two questions. Is it right, Kara, that what council would want to see is an actual feasibility study? Is that an appropriate condition to expect you to come back with prior to a final action?
It is a worthwhile question because when I hear feasibility study, we write feasibility studies for special assessment projects. They have study document with recommendation. What staff was looking for was just demonstration of the feasibility and constructability of the proposed utility route. So essentially, it ends up being a preliminary plan set, like a 30% level design, with some input from a contractor for how they would build it and what deviations from standard might be needed in order to accomplish it. So
It's not a full study.
Yeah, Acting Mayor, let me just be blunt. What I might have anticipated the direction to be or the action to be would be, we want to hear, before this comes forward again, we want to hear from the engineer that the utilities are feasible. And in doing that, we want her to consider, right? What you've laid out, a number of considerations that you want to be taken into. I'm just a little concerned about, for example, needing Carver County to have granted the permit to cross under their trail right-of-way. I don't know how long processing that's going to take, but the engineer might be convinced that it's feasible to get that permit. It's just a matter of timing and getting the right paperwork done. So those are two different things, right? Requiring that they hold the permit in their hands versus the engineer being convinced that this is all going to work out are two different things.
That's why we left it nebulous.
All right. Well, I mean, I think that's the clarification we need to hear, is that you want those things considered and found to be feasible, not that literally all of those things need to be in hand.
So do I have to strike my motion?
No, I'm clarifying it for you. You can say that's right, Mr. Attorney.
That's right, Mr.
Okay,
Attorney.
perfect.
Thank
There we
you.
go. Yep.
And then I second that motion.
Okay, so a motion has been made by Councilmember Pedersen, second by Roberts. Are we all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
And then we'll make a motion to table the resolution approving vacation of the easements and right-of-way for the Bell Maple Farms residential development.
I'll make a second.
Okay, a motion by Councilmember Roberts, seconded by Councilmember Reef. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to table the resolution authorizing submittal of a comprehensive plan amendment to the Metropolitan Council for Bell Maple Farms residential development.
We have a motion made by Councilmember Reef. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, a motion is made by Councilmember Reef and seconded by Councilmember Pedersen. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Council, there are no more items on our regular agenda, so we will now move on to reports and emerging issues. Attorney Vos, are there any reports?
Mayor and Council, I do not have anything to report. Thanks.
Ms. Hardy, are there any reports from staff?
None from staff this evening.
Council Member Pedersen, are there any reports?
None from me, but thank you for asking.
Councilmember Reef, are there any reports?
I'm all set. Thank you for asking.
Councilmember Roberts, are there any reports? And I have none, so with that, I will take a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
There's no more business to come before this body. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right, motion was made by Councilmember Roberts, seconded by Councilmember Pedersen. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned. Thank you for your time this evening.